Film Diet Podcast.
And it was just sequel after sequel after sequel.
There was no character development at all.
Just that on pure technical levels.
There are filmmakers that don't want it just to be an entertainment experience. Hello and welcome to Media Academy Online's Film Diet Podcast. I'm Dana.
And I'm Brandon.
And my name is important for this one because we're going to be talking about...
Wayne's World! Wayne's World! Party time! Excellent!
You can clearly see it's something we've been...
rehearsing? It's taken about 6 weeks now.
Took us a while.
Yeah.
We sort of had to sit down, have a committee meeting, plan it out.
A few meetings.
Practice it. Took us a while. We
Mm.
finally got there and then I was cut off halfway and destroyed it. But that's fine.
Here we are. Now, why are we talking about Wayne's World?
So we're talking about Wayne's World because it's a bit of a fun one, but we wanted to explain a little bit further about it and explain our thoughts behind that era of film, that sort of the 90s era of film.
That we grew up with, I suppose.
We did. We grew up with it.
This was the cutting edge Hollywood, fresh kind of comedy at that time.
Hollywood is so serious now and so rehearsed and dry and cut so clean now.
It's hard to see this kind of comedy out there now.
You get the odd one here or there, but that sort of just make it up as you go style almost isn't really there.
Yeah, it's like not really many movies made from just sketches off another show, like Saturday Night Live, for example.
That's right.
Like, it just doesn't happen anymore.
I guess starting off with Wayne's World, so the main cast, Dana Carvey.
And the infamous Mike Myers.
Oh, who's he?
You know, he's that serial killer from the Halloween movies.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Do you ever remember watching these as a kid, or do you remember the time when you actually watched these? Were they on TV? Do you remember getting them on video?
They're the kind of thing that I've seen so many times, and it's something you see almost every year or two.
It's ingrained.
You don't remember actually first seeing it.
No.
You've just always known what's happened.
It's always been there.
And there's a whole series, there's a whole slate of films in this boat from the 90s.
You know, and you got like Airheads, Coneheads.
Yeah.
But, you know, it went into the Adam Sandler stuff, like I was saying, like Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore. There was so many of these SNL comedy movies at that time. That was kind of the standard for like what a successful comedy was. And there was always banking on that star.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey was coming up, Ace Ventura, you know, and a lot of the old comedians were probably dying off a lot. You had guys like Billy Crystal doing City Slickers, and you had those guys, you know, Daniel Stern and all those guys doing Home Alone. And I don't know, there was like a family comedy sort of area, and then there was that Saturday Night Live stuff. Yeah. That's what was dominating, you know. I mean, I'll probably look back and see a lot of different stuff at that time as well, but this is what I knew.
Yeah, but they're almost sure things, right? Because they're easy to make, they're cheap to make, and they bought the audience. Yeah. And so they were so easy, they were an easy sell, really. Yeah,
especially on video. Like, I don't even think they cared about the cinema thing back then. It was just like... video.
Chuck them on video. That's right.
And they go nuts.
I don't remember. Don't think I've seen any of these in the cinemas. They're all on
always
VHS.
TV or video.
No, that's right.
Yeah, taped off video, TV, you know, or something like that. But I remember Wayne's World being on like every year.
Yeah, it was on repeat.
Yeah, that and Airheads, and I was always so happy to find that was on TV, and I'd just be like, yes, there's my night, sorted, you know, and I guess this was our first introduction to Mike Myers and Dana Carvey as well, and seeing what they've done since then as well.
And it's really interesting because they both went on to do amazing things. You know, we had Mike Myers who was doing so well for the longest amount of time, and then just blew it. He just one bad film and he was gone.
Yeah, that was it. One blunder.
Yeah, other than Shrek, I suppose.
And then you really do see the changing of times. Because if that film had come out, 10 years prior or 5 years prior, it probably would have done a lot better. If he did that before Austin Powers 2, it probably would have done a lot better.
It really was the marking of the end of the
That era. Was the big shift. It was just like, no more silly comedies with you.
Yeah.
With you guys.
And I think I reckon there was a few things, right? There would have been the changing of politics that were around in Hollywood.
Stuff was getting very strange at that time with all that,
and the audience would have changed.
Yeah.
And the films are getting more expensive, and they weren't as easy, sure things like they were.
And they weren't even as smart. Like
No,
Wayne's
no.
World and Austin Powers and a lot of those ones, like they're so silly, but behind them they have like a heart, and
Yeah.
they actually are created from a creative sort of standpoint.
Yeah.
Whereas when you see that, what is that film, the Mike Myers one that killed him? The Bollywood Guru, the
yeah,
Love
that's
Guru.
it. Yeah, the Love Guru.
And that was just so bad taste.
It was. I remember I saw it was on TV. I watched the last half of it, and I that was probably one of his worst acted ones.
Oh, everything about it was bad.
Yeah, it just didn't. It wasn't working.
There was nothing in there that was like, oh yeah, that was at least that was okay.
Yeah,
Like making fun of another culture at that time as well.
absolutely. Yeah,
Totally
and
behind.
that's the thing, right? Because all this humor that we watch is all harmless humor. The ones that do really well, where they're not making fun of anyone except themselves.
Yeah,
And that was the point.
yeah.
You know, everyone else in the film like was almost glorified, and all of the, the funny elements were
Through character,
yeah.
the character itself. Yeah.
That's right.
Instead of like just taking easy jokes and easy like, oh, let's just make fun of an Indian guru guy, and and it just goes from there, and it's just like there's nothing that's actually intelligent about that comedy or
And
that humor.
The Love Guru looks like one of those ones where you could see that these films were starting to cost more as well, where they had they clearly had money to play with.
Yeah. Especially after Austin Powers.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin Powers, I mean...
That gave him so much cred and backing.
Like, how many Austin Powers did we have?
3.
3.
And they've been trying to push out something since.
Yeah. I think 3's heaps
Oh,
at this stage.
should have been 2.
Yeah.
You know, and they definitely declined in quality dramatically.
Yeah.
I rewatched those not too long ago, so
Yeah.
But Wayne's World's always been one like it's in my DNA.
Absolutely.
Like
yeah.
Austin Powers came after that.
Yeah, it was a bit later. I remember the first one quite well.
I actually remember that because that tanked. Austin Powers like tanked at the cinema even, you know, and it didn't blow up until it was on VHS, like 2 years after the fact.
But I mean, as we've been saying, that's where all those films were at.
Yeah.
We would just buy the fuck out of them.
Yeah, and like that would always be rented.
Yeah.
From the video stores.
That's it, because that was the thing. Every week, once a week,
Friday night.
we'd go into Blockbuster.
It's all gone. No, should have got here earlier. Should have phoned ahead and got them to put one aside.
I remember I wasted so many hours at the Blockbuster.
I lived there.
I'd go with my parents, and they'd go in their section, and I'd go in my section, and just...
I'd just be looking and looking and looking.
We'd always get that same deal. What it was, I think it was 4
5 weeklies,
and then a couple of
overnighters or 3 nightlies. Or,
yeah. I could never get the overnights. Mum never liked those. She said 3 nights fine. 1 night you'll never watch them all. Don't worry.
It actually sounds so funny now when you talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
because we've just got so much content at the. We don't want to watch something. We can come back 10 months later. It's there. It's ready. You just click it.
It's insane. It's still like Netflix. You know, you click it, you hit pause, you come back 6 months later, you hit unpause. You know,
that's right.
You couldn't do that VHS back
Those
in the day.
Those one-nighters were killers because you'd get 3 of them because you're so excited. You stay up until 3 a.m. and fall asleep watching the last one.
Yeah. I love those nights though. I was born and raised on that. So
the kind of joy. That's the thing. Like, this is a very nostalgic one for us.
Yeah, I suppose.
The joy of just walking into Blockbuster and knowing anything there you can rent and watch, and you don't get the same thing with Netflix.
Nah, even it's not the same experience.
No, it's
browsing.
different. It's because, I mean, you're working with less catalog, but at the same time, I think it's the whole fact that
instantaneous.
It's instant, you know.
It's like, why would I bother with that? No, I've seen that too many times, or that doesn't look as good.
Any good.
Yeah,
but you'd sit there for hours. And okay, I've only got this amount of DVDs I can get for this week.
Yeah.
And you'd be reading the back of them and looking at the pictures. And
who's the actors? Who's the director? Who's done the music? Who's, you know. And
you'd really engross you'd know that film before you've seen it. But now it's just start up 10 minutes and I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm not into it. And this is like the loss of patience in our culture now or society now, I reckon. Like it's it's a part of all that, because we used to put up with shit and we'd just watch it because we hired it.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't as good as we thought, but we'd have to watch the whole thing, or maybe
Yeah.
turn off and put the next one on. But we were limited to those 5 weeklies or whatever it was, and
Yeah.
it was just, you make the most of them back then, or you did, and remember to rewind them before you take them back.
Yeah, that's it.
Or bring them back on time, otherwise you'll get fines.
Yeah,
And
I
you're paying
remember
more fines than...
there was
Yeah.
in near where I lived, there was a Blockbuster, and then that shut down, and then they were chasing me for ages to get their money out of that. It was like $27 of late fees. They never.
That's why they crumbled.
Yeah.
Because they were going after you.
Well, I know that's it. My
Yeah.
$27 was.
Made that whole business collapse,
Yeah,
that
they said,
whole
"We
industry.
haven't got this $27.
Damn it.
But yeah. Anyway, back onto the films.
Yeah, Wayne's World, Mike Myers,
so-
Dana Carvey.
Yeah. And so, as we were saying, they both went and did their own thing. Dana Carvey went on and he had the Dana Carvey show.
Did a couple movies.
He's done- he
Master
did-
of Disguise.
That's right. Master of Disguise was the fun one.
Which I'd
Am I
say
not
was...
totally enough for the Turtle Club.
Yeah. It's definitely... it wasn't popular, as
Yeah.
popular. He never has been.
But again, that's one of those ones that was that kind of humor a bit later though.
Yeah, that was like 2000,
Yeah.
around that 2000 mark. And that was during the shift.
Yeah, and that's when we started seeing all these other ones that were more like crude, like college humor.
Yeah, and I guess you had Old School coming. You had Zoolander and
Yeah.
all those ones coming through. Ben Stiller stuff and, all those new blood, so to speak.
Yeah.
And Mike Myers, with Wayne's World and Dana Carvey, they only did the 2 films. I think the first one would have been about 92, 93.
Yeah.
And then the second one must have been 94, 95. So
Yeah.
it was a pretty big quick turnaround on sequels then as well. I mean, it is today, but we live in the sequel era now.
Yeah.
I mean, sequels were starting to bubble up quite a lot through the 90s as well. If they had one success, they'd
Yeah.
usually make a second.
Yeah. Well, their post-production stage was so short. You didn't. All these films live in post-production now.
Yeah, true.
When back then it was just find a location, quickly film it, cheaply done. There's no visual effects. It might have one visual effect shot somewhere just because. And it look hokey
something.
and
Yeah.
garbage, and it'll be hilarious.
That's it. Yeah.
But other than that, it's just all right. It's all about pre-production and filming and production, and that's it. Quickly edit it, and you'll be out. You'll be done 5 months later.
It's crazy. Well,
Yeah.
what's something some of the bits in Wayne's World? I love them just on the couch and they're talking. They're set up in his basement, their parents' basement.
Yeah.
Love that idea. It's
It's
so
great.
cool.
When they're filming their little.
The
thing,
little show, and it's
show.
on community TV
Yeah.
or whatever in the little area, and just everything they do, they're reviewing
Yeah.
that vacuum cleaner with that dude that they're interviewing right at the start, and they're like, "Yeah, it really does suck," and all that sort of stuff.
It's funny because it's the equivalent to YouTube for us now.
Yes,
It's just anyone can imagine Wayne's World on YouTube kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Back then, it was oh my god, 2 guys have actually made their own TV show in
it
a
was
basement.
great. And you kind of look at it and like, oh, they're so cool, they're so legit and so smart.
Yeah,
And they're just the dumbest shits ever.
Yeah.
And then you got the car stuff.
Oh,
gold.
and all their mates, the roadies, the guys that are the cameramen and that, and they're just they're all squeezed into the car, and then the Queen comes on. I think that is probably the most famous sort of sing along, one of them in a movie. That's a standout moment in that film. It's a classic moment.
Absolutely. And it's
love
fun
it.
because they're just being themselves. It's
Yeah.
just, there's nothing else to it. Just singing along the song. But we all know it, and we're all going to join in. We're all going to have a smile on our face.
Yeah, and then head bang at the end, and then he sees the guitar and he's like, "Oh yes, it will be mine." Yeah, I don't know. Mike Myers was on, in this film. I mean, he was switched on. Say what you will about him and all that sort of thing, especially 10 films later. But at this juncture, it fitted so well with who he was.
It was
and
great.
you know,
Golden era.
and encapsulating that whole 90s rock, Aerosmith and, all these bands and stuff like that. And it was so cool. Led Zeppelin, Queen, you got all these bands and it's just cool,
Like your top.
yeah, like my top. And this is probably why, that it's made such an impact on me because that's what was cool.
Yeah, I mean that was in the zeitgeist. That was in the culture.
Yeah.
hardcore back then.
And
That
it was like, oh yeah, you're rocking, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like times have changed. You know, before rap and dance music really sort of took over. You know,
That's
and
right.
pop music. You know, all this kind of, you know,
You had real people with real instruments. Now
in
it's
long hair and
computers.
you know, and moshing
Long hair,
away
that's right.
and
Yeah.
you know, it was such a different time. You know,
Yeah.
I don't even know what kids listen to anymore. But yeah, I mean, Wayne's World, such a brilliant concept, you know, from a skit to the movie. And then you got like Chris Farley and all these cool guys that were on SNL as well, you know, like having little cameos, and they really just added a lot of flavor. And
that was a common theme, seeing all these different actors.
friends, like they're all friends.
They'd all share in each other's film. They all have their cameos.
Yeah, and that's just taken straight from the earlier guys as well, like Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. and
absolutely.
that crew, Jim Belushi. Sorry.
Yeah.
And, you know, like that whole idea of the SNL guys, a gang, you know, and they're like a cool little crew, and you'd be like, oh, what's that guy's film, and then that guy's film, and, you know, and it's like, oh, wow, he's in that one, and he's in that one, and it's, it was so cool to see all that connected.
Yep.
It was almost like a what do they call it now? Like the DC universe. It was almost like the SNL universe back then, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like that kind of idea, really.
It is where they unofficially live in the same world.
Yeah. But yeah, any other good moments that you can remember? Instances? Like I remember this one moment when they go into like the music shop and Garth's about to start wailing on the drum kit.
Yeah.
And then the guy's like, no. Oh no, Garth has a little moment, but Mike Myers is about to start, you know, playing on the guitar, and he's like, no stairway.
Yeah.
No Stairway to Heaven, because it's like something that everyone used to play. Or it's like it's like, nah. That was a good moment.
I think the moment that stood out for me, there was a few of them.
Yeah.
All along the same vein, right? That I remember. Right. It's always when they're meeting their love interests. When the first one, the Asian girl.
Dream Woman, and that music will kick in, and it's like all fully romanticized, and
and they'd act up, you know, the feeling of it, and I'd be, it was so I don't know, childish is the right word, but innocent and
premature. Yeah, you know, it's like that full sort of teenage angsty period where it's just like, you know, and. It's funny. Tia Korea, like she was so hot in that film. I remember watching it. Be like, oh, she's amazing. And how the hell did Mike Myers pull that? You know, it must be he's Wayne. You know, he's got Wayne's World, and then Rob Lowe, who's the bad guy. I don't know if you remember or know who Rob Lowe is, but he's come a long way. He went through a lot of like drug periods as well after that, the late 90s, and kind of lost his way for a while, but then bounced back with Parks and Recreation, and you know, he's been in a lot of stuff as well, and he's really pulled himself back, and that's awesome. And he's great playing the villain in the first Wayne's World. You know, he takes his girlfriend away from him, and he's like the agent or the manager, you know, and he's I mean, Wayne's World, it's just a classic 90s film.
It's one that you can't, like, everyone's so serious about films now, and we're the same. And you sit there and critiquing the film and breaking it down. Oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. This is one of those ones that you can't do that. You just have to take it for what it is and embrace it. And they're not standing there saying, I'm making the best art in the world.
Yeah. It's seriously just like, it is what it is. Like, you know, you can't really throw too much at it because it doesn't care.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. You know, it's like, and unfortunately that style of comedy kind of changed and became, like, you look at it now, like you got Will Ferrell was probably the last one that was really carrying that torch. Yeah. And he was just bringing out a film at least every year, if not a couple. But it's really has died. Like his last couple films just bombed. His probably last 5 or 10.
Any of those actors, they're trying to do stuff, but a lot of them are falling pretty hard at this stage. Yeah,
it's almost like it's back to, they should all look back at TV, you know, back onto Netflix, and I guess that's where it's at. But even then, there's so much competition out there now in ways of like, people, are they actually going to watch it? There's probably not enough people.
Yeah, well, all the people coming up now, they don't know anything of that. They won't find that funny. It's not their humour. Yeah. That's so true. It's not their humour. So times have changed. What is the humour these days?
I mean, we had even films like American Pie and all that come
Yeah.
through.
Well, that's the change, right? We're seeing the death of the $20 million films. They're all the big expensive ones.
Mm.
And the only little ones that are getting made these days tend to be smaller ones that might be like a rom-com or something that the girls might find funny or...
Yeah, like that Scarlett Johansson date night movie.
Yeah.
Those kind of ones where it's like they go to the cinema and it's popular for like a week or two, makes its budget back.
That's all they want. They move
And that's
on.
it.
Yeah.
And then they move on. I don't even know like how it all works now. Like
comedy isn't the king of the world. It used to be. It used to be the sure things in the 90s.
Yeah, I guess the 90s. It must be that MTV culture as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming off the backbone of that, you had Beavis and Butthead and, you know, that very heavily inspired from the teenage sort of years. And that's like what was cool. You know, that was rad. You know, you had MTV and you had, you know, Saturday Night Live humor and you had skateboarding and surfing and,
absolutely.
you know, it was all like rock on, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's all good, you know. But now that's so in the past. It's like looking at the 60s when you're in the 90s or in the 70s or something. It's like such a divide.
It is. I'll still have that, you know, might work with someone who's, you know, and they're not necessarily that much younger. They might be 22, 23 and who I might work with at work or professionally or whatever. And they just, their humour's different and they're into different kind of things. And I find it makes you feel almost old.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing, isn't it?
And they're into all these new, you know, whatever.
Yeah, they're talking about all
new
this stuff, and you're like
social media and all that stuff.
you're like,
and
what?
It's so hard to keep up with all that.
It's so. I guess it's such a quick world we live in now, isn't it? These kids are like, oh, did you read that thread on Reddit or something, and I'm like, what the hell's Reddit?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Tried this app.
Yeah,
It's a really cool app.
I know Reddit, but I don't use it. You know,
never used it. Don't know what to do on it.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so people are posting stuff.
What do you do? Is it like a forum or?
I guess. Is it like MSN?
Yeah, MSN. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Now we're bringing it back.
Belong? Yeah. Oh, God.
All right, I guess we'll finish it there.
Yeah.
So this was just a fun one, I guess. But if you haven't seen it, if you are younger and have no idea what we're talking about, it's worth a watch to see
totally.
what's come before and what sort of that period that in the 90s, which was a huge transformational period in Hollywood. It's definitely worth looking at.
You know, I think Wayne's World as well is one of the ones out of the, you know, the many that probably still have a little bit of a place because they're, you know, it's that rock culture encapsulated in that film. So it's kind of like people still listen to those bands, Aerosmith and all that stuff is still around, you know, it's still got its place.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at some of the other ones that are really silly or just not as interesting, they're probably like, you know, no one's really watching them anymore. But these films I think will remain for a lot longer. Out of a lot of the other ones from the 90s, even Austin Powers, like I think that dated quicker than Wayne's World.
So we'll leave it there.
Yes.
So that was Wayne's World.
Wayne's World.
Party time.
Excellent. Maybe we'll come back and talk about more comedies and just, you know, in future ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was just a fun one to get us going. So we've got a big year ahead. We're excited.
2020, it's
2020.
on. We're coming.
We're going to do it.
We're coming for you.
Very good. All right. Thanks for listening.
Yes, adios.